Hi everybody, this is Carly, DIA's Chief Executive. I thought I would give you a bit of an update and a summary on the letter that you will have received this afternoon from DVSA on the roadmap to resuming training. I've got with me today a face that will be familiar to many of you. It's Chris Benstead, owner and operator of Better ADIs and a driving school as well. But more familiar, I suppose, to most of you from I'm an ADI or PDI and I'm on Facebook, the very busy Facebook forum. And he's also developing some information on COVID-19 to support ADI, which is a page that some of you might have used already, developing info in the driver training community. However, this video is going to get posted to that page anyway. Chris, thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure, thank you for inviting me.
So no, you're going to have some questions for me, as I think, although the letter is quite clear in parts, other parts maybe not so obvious straight off the bat about what's in this letter. So if I just summarise the main points in the letter that was sent out today and why it's suddenly appeared. We've been dogging DVSA, shall we say, for many weeks now to have better communications with the industry, as we hadn't had anything previous to this since the 22nd of April. And obviously, you know, nobody likes to be in the dark, particularly when it affects their livelihood. So at least the letter is trying to give us some information about what needs still to be done for driver testing to be resuming. This letter, by the way, has gone out to ATBs and vocational trainers as well as ADIs. So in the main, there's kind of 5 or 6 key points that the letter covers. It sets out right from the outset that there is still no green light from central government on testing resuming. What is important here is to consider that Public Health England and other advisory bodies have to feel comfortable that the infection is at such a rate that we can resume some of these close contact activities like driver training. And quite frankly, we are not at the point yet that they are comfortable that things like driver testing is ready to resume. Obviously that changes maybe on a daily basis given the number of cases and infections, how the NHS is coping, all those things. So the letter will talk to you about the 5 tests of risk and our ability to manage them as a whole in the UK. And that is the thing that influences whether we're able to resume things like testing. But then it goes on about how to restart our services and the plans that DVSA have been working on to do that. They have their plans in place. There's a lot of war gaming going on and trying to simulate the models that they'd like to put in place. But obviously the big challenge is being able to put them in place and seeing what happens when they can actually trigger the restart. And the key areas that they have to look at are making sure driving test centres are ready to reopen. There's over 400 locations for testing for Cat B alone in the UK. Not all of them owned by DVSA. They are some leased from landlords, so they're reliant on private landlords for that reopening. There's things they have to put in place to make sure those places are safe for you to re-enter as members of the public. And they are reliant not just on their own workforce to go in and check and take some of these centres out of mothballs, but also contractors to check things like the water supply is safe and everything else satisfies health and safety requirements to open those as well. They are working on preparing guides for driving examiners, so they need to update the standard operating procedures for normal testing. What they're working on at the moment is emergency tests. They need to make sure they've got the right stock of PPE for examiners, and also to make sure that they'll be able to help with a track and trace service, so that if a pupil or a driving instructor or examiner falls ill within days of the test, that they are part of that test and trace service as well. And how does that work? As I said, making sure they've got PPE in place, understanding which examiners will be available. Although there is a large workforce already back working to clear this backlog of emergency tests, they still have to understand who is able to come back to work for normal testing to resume, whether they're shielding or shielding family members, whether they've got underlying health issues, and that will help them decide the stock of people they have left. And then they have to plan the driving tests themselves and how they're going to work. Now, the biggest piece of this announcement, which I think will trigger the most questions, is the plan to resume testing. And what they plan to do is, rather than keep rescheduling driving tests, is actually to place now all driving tests on hold. So any dates anybody's holding at the moment will be placed on hold. It's very carefully worded this. It's not cancelled, it's placed on hold. What this means is anybody who had a test before lockdown that was rescheduled will now be placed into a holding pattern, as they describe it. They'll be taken out of the main booking system, which will remain closed, and they will be placed into a new system. What will happen is once that new system is up and running, you will be sent a link as the pupil or the pupil's trainer booker. You'll be able to click on that link and you'll be able to rebook your date to suit you and your training schedule and your needs for that test, rather than the situation which we might have expected is that you'd be automatically issued a new date and that would be it, with a little bit wiggle room to change it, but not much. Why they've designed it this way is to give priority to those who had their test rescheduled right at the start and have been waiting the longest. So this will be done in waves, by the way. The people contacted first will be the first people waiting the longest, and to give you the chance to change your test. So you've got time to train people, and you can have it at a more convenient time. So that's the key point.
Will that be based on who's booked it in the first place then?
Yes.
So if the people book their own, or if you did it through the trainer booker system?
Yes, I think it'll be whoever made that booking will get the communication first. So the onus will be on the trainer bookers to obviously communicate with their pupils at about what the most convenient time to the pupil and the ADI to move that test to. But I think that's the bit that I think most people are going to have quite a lot of questions about how that works. So what's your feeling, Chris, on, because obviously you're ear to the ground more than most in this industry?
What we've wanted to know is, it's been, when can we work and what's going to happen with tests? And with the pressure of having tests that were in place, that this is going to relieve that. So I think there's going to be a lot of people breathing and doing what they feel is right rather than what they were feeling they had to do for their pupils, for the business, and being able to take that approach. So I think that's going to help dramatically. So, now it's going to become much more about the practicalities of it. If we can accept that, it's going to be a while until there's tests, and that date's going to be communicated, then that's great. Was there any, is there any indication of the time period that we'll have between, us being able to go and train them, the DVSA nod, and tests going ahead?
I mean, it's always been something we've asked for and they've agreed with. In every instance we've spoken about this, that there should at least be around 2 to 3 weeks before somebody goes to test. And putting the power back to a certain degree into the hands of ADIs to choose the dates obviously is better, because you'll be able to choose a date that is further into the future. I mean, I've been talking for a while to DVSA about, can we get some kind of booking system open as soon as possible? Because there's actually quite a few people who want to push back. They don't want to have those tests in June and July. And I think if we can get some people pushing back, we'll reduce the pressure on both them and the DVSA as well. So I think, you will be able to plan your own destiny a bit better with this. And I know that what they will do is make these announcements in a way that, gives more line of sight to people that, right, you can start training now and your test is going to be in about 2 weeks' time. But it's, as you said, it at least removes some of the pressure, in that more or less what this letter is saying is, okay, they're using the terminology holding pattern, or tests are being put on hold, but you kind of know, at least for June, we aren't going to be doing any testing. You can see the challenges that we've got ahead here. You can see that they're going to be asking people to go in and rebook, even though all your information will be there and it's going to be made very, very easy for you, at a time and place that's better for you. It's still going to be a good few weeks before we're starting to see those first ones go through. So I think, rightfully, it takes some pressure off. It doesn't obviously address the frustration and impatience of people who do want to get back to training, because you want to start earning money, right? So I'm hoping that this developed information about and test dates starting to come through, and your ability to book them starts coming through, quicker, so people can, in a week or so's time, maybe be able to think about going back to training in the next month.
Yes, and it's that ability to plan, isn't it? That's what's been missing.
Absolutely.
Because we haven't known. So yeah, I think that definitely answers that question that a lot of people have had.
It's taking the panic off about the next couple of weeks, I think, at least, and that'll have it, maybe make people have a bit of a, okay, I can calm down a little bit moment, it's not going to take all the frustration away,
No,
because you've still not
not
got
at
a
all.
date for your pupil, and you've not got therefore a date to start training, or guidance about starting training.
Yeah, or money coming in, and it's that balance. But it also gives us a bit of leeway in those that want to go and look for other work and try and find something coming through to fill that gap.
I think that's a really important point. I mean, you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. If we'd have known a few months ago it's going to be this long, we'd have done lots of different things. We know that. But I think if we had you know, more foresight of, you know, just exactly what are we facing in terms of resuming testing, and that it's actually going to be towards, not deliberately, but towards the back of the queue behind things like retail and other areas of life and resuming, I think more people would have considered at least a part-time role to keep them going along as well. So yeah, I think it is regrettable, highly regrettable, that people haven't been able to make decisions about how they support their family beyond the financial assistance packages that are being offered.
Yeah, and so many of the ADI community haven't, and especially the PDIs haven't qualified for anything.
Yes.
You know, that guidance would have helped, but we are where we are now.
Yeah.
So those that have chosen to go back already, I think there was quite a big increase today with retail going back.
Yeah.
Where do they stand? You know, so the DVSA are still saying, unless there is a key worker test,
yeah,
training shouldn't be occurring.
Yeah.
Where do the people stand that have gone back? What's coming through from the DVSA, and then what's coming through from the DIA?
For the DIA. Okay, so DVSA is sticking very strongly to key worker training only, and only for those who have an emergency test booked. Now, however, they are aware, and obviously we are aware, that there are people doing training that does not result in a driving test. It is people who are on a Cat B license, maybe working for Tesco's, and they're going from driving a car to a 3.5 ton van. So we know we need some people to be trained without a critical work. So there is a little bit of leeway that if somebody did have a fine, for example, from the police for doing something, which I think is less likely in that area of occupational driver training, but if they did, and they were able to present evidence that it was an essential, you know, organised kind of a need to do that training with a key worker aim in sight, i.e. training a logistics driver or something like that, then the registrar will take a more lenient view of that. What we're picking up on is that there are some police forces that are deciding to fine people, and we've had members ring in and say, you know, I've been picked up by the police, I was given a warning that I'd receive a fine next time, or they've received a fine. And especially in Wales, where the lockdown is still in its strictest form. So I do believe an association in Powys invited Powys Police to come along to their webinar, and the police representative confirmed they will fine people on the basis of members of, you know, it's not members of your own household in the car with you. And I did ask DVSA on Friday, because it was getting confusing even for us about what is it that you're actually hanging this fine on, you know, what's triggering it. Because frankly, I've looked at the coronavirus emergency powers bill that covers lots of things, and couldn't see what it was we were applying to ADIs and driving. Because as time's gone on, the lockdown's eased. Obviously, essential journeys only has changed. We can drive anywhere we want now, and it really seems to just be on that sharing of a car with people from your other household. But again, that got more complex when you have grant chaps saying, well, if you can't take public transport and your employees, you could share a car. So I could understand why people are saying, hang on a minute, if they can do that, why can't we do that? Obviously, the police, each regional force has got its own discretion about how it operates in terms of enforcement. So I'd just say to people, be careful. Obviously, don't be cocky if they try and do it and say, DIA's chief executive says she's not sure what you're even doing on. They have got certain powers to be able to enforce when they think social distancing is being compromised at the risk of the public health. So those are the powers really they've been granted, and they interpret them for the situation, quite frankly. DVSA have said, obviously, they've written to the appeals teams, which is who you appeal to if you get a fine with your regional force. So they've written to the regional force and said, if somebody can evidence it, that they've been training for an essential reason, we don't really think you should enforce, and I'm paraphrasing their communication, but I've seen the communication, we don't really think you should enforce the fine, because these people are doing a good job, right? They're helping to get key workers to where they need to be. And if that went to appeal in terms of the registrar, they will review each case on its own merits and each set of evidence they're presented in mitigation as well. However, if somebody, even if they have evidence of an essential need to deliver training at this time, if they don't notify the registrar of any fines or any motor conviction, they're going to take a view on your fit and proper conduct because you haven't notified the conviction. So the advice,
that's the advice with everything, isn't it?
Everything.
If you get a ticket, if you get and anything that affects
anything insurance related, CCJ,
let them know.
Yeah, I mean, we're all thinking about the massive risk of COVID-19 in our lives, and I don't want to make you depressed, but it's a sobering time to think about all the risks in your profession. And we've done a couple of webinars on this recently where, the risks that you think are the risks to an ADI are not necessarily the ones that are going to bite you on the bum. And when I go to interviews under caution and in tribunals, you can see the shell-shocked nature of the candidate, the ADI in this question, that they never thought they'd lose their livelihood over a CCJ that came out of a dispute with the pupil over a refund, for example.
And length of service doesn't stand for anything.
No.
In those cases, because that's the other thing I often hear is, but I've been dedicated, and they genuinely have, to this job for 20 years. It was a slip, the checked mobile phone or something. So yeah, I think letting them know.
Yeah, they're very strong on this, and they will argue you sign a declaration that says, every 4 years, that says you will let them know of any change to your circumstance, any enforcement, any issues. CCJs in general, as a side point, aren't necessarily the problem in a fit and proper sense. It's when the CCG is connected with the pupil dispute. That's when it's seen as, under the code of conduct, things like fraud and things like that. And so, in this case if you go out at the moment, and I know people would like me to say, nobody should be out on that road and follow the guide. I do say follow the guidance from DVSA, and I do support the guidance, which is we've got to reduce the number of exposures going on, ergo reduce the risk to all of us. But it's not my jurisdiction to tell people to train or not to train. But I can only set out the risk factors, which is the police might nab you, you might get a fine. The fine itself might not be enforced, but if you don't notify of anything, the registrar might take a dim view of your conduct, and you've got obviously the risk of getting COVID-19. It's still in our community, so that's the problem that we've got to face. So I think if you are on the edge and you're wavering, I would take a sobering glance at that at the moment and think about the fact that, are we moving to a time when you'll be officially allowed out, and is it worth risking it for a few short weeks, hopefully?
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned Scotland and Wales. Yeah. The big differences, because I know the guys from Scotland and Wales always feel like they're being slightly left out, not just inside the industry, by the government as well. It's not necessarily being fed through in the information.
I know Northern Ireland also feels like it's left out as well in terms of communications. DVSA are talking to all the devolved administrations about these plans and making sure that they can try and get a consistent plan of delivery everywhere. It's not always in their behest what they can do with different administrations, but having a consistency of approach is obviously clearly important. So they're talking to the devolved administrations now and trying to form a more complete picture of guidance about how testing will resume. And we're planning some updates this week which look at what is the advice in different areas, so people don't A, think we've forgotten about the fact they live in Northern Ireland, and B, so they're clearer on their picture as well.
I got told off the other day because I referred to green badges, and Northern Ireland, they're white.
They're white.
So you learn something every day. I love that.
And if we think communication's been poor in some respects from DVSA, I think our Northern Ireland colleagues might say, well, you think yourself lucky because we've had very little at all in Northern Ireland.
I've heard too. So what's your view on that? How do we feel the DVSA have communicated? Put you on the spot.
Well, it's not really, because I think I've already said I don't think it's been very good, and I've said that to them, and I've said that to you, and I've said that in communications to members as well. You know, I pull no punches on this one. It has been woeful at times. Look, I understand. By the way, I'm not excusing them, but I do understand the role of that comms team, and I know it's very, very hard in a crisis to do this, especially when actually your power's taken away from you, because normally your sign off on comms is your own agency or department. In times of crisis in the public sector, you know, it's almost a kind of one-line whip, and it's coming through somebody higher up than you in central government, and you know, everybody's got to stop doing what they're doing in a normal way and wait for somebody else to give them guidance. So we're waiting on guidance from someone who's waiting on guidance, and the chain gets longer and longer. And DVSA is not necessarily the priority when you've got the NHS in the mix and things like that. However, and they have taken this on the chin, you know, luckily not right on the chin because of social distancing. So they're probably quite glad about that. They have taken on the chin that even if you can't get out dates, even if you can't be completely transparent about process and issues, which, to be fair, they have to degree in this letter, you can reassure people. You know, there's nothing that needs to be signed off by the Cabinet Office about saying, we hear you, we respect the situation we're in. We know it's really frustrating. It's, you know, not even, it's frustrating for us too, because actually there's a huge amount of people don't care about that. They just care about their situation, and so be it. But I think that was the big missing link here. You know, you are customers of DVSA. You pay a fee to DVSA. You generate other customers with your pupils as well. And to me, I think that has been one major failing, and it's a lesson for the future. You know, even if you're just saying, hello, we're here, we do care, you are our customer, you do deserve our support, we've got nothing to tell you. And, you know, I kind of, the people who send emails like, even to us, oh, that was used communication, why did you send it out? Kind of undermine other people's desire to have communication. So be careful what you wish for the guys who send us those kind of emails, because you might not get any communications at all. Most people would prefer at least something to say that they're being thought of and considered in some way.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be, you know, every day or information coming through in that way, but knowing that someone's at the other end. You know, you need those acknowledging noises that you make on the phone when you're talking to someone. There needs to be some kind of connection there. So,
I mean, you know, it's a difficult time for everybody at the moment. I think for people sat at home, it's really frustrating because you can't see exactly what's going on, and all the work that is going into something. And, you know, also to people, check your spam filters, because a lot of people say they've had nothing from nobody. And then we hear a pause in their voice when we say check your spam filters, because they just uncovered a cache of emails from DVSA and DIA and everybody else. But, you know, it hasn't been easy to get information out to you all. It's been really frustrating because we've had information at times, nothing solid that, you know, is really, really juicy, but stuff that would have reassured people. And because of sensitivities, we weren't allowed to get it out. I suppose that's one of the reasons I do video. It's quite cunning in a way. I can always let things slip verbally that I don't put in writing. So it's quite sneaky that I do these videos in a way. And DVSA is a respect to a certain extent that I will say things and they can't say sometimes, and they haven't got the permission to say. If I'm a gob on a stick, sometimes it's useful that I will just blurt out something. But yeah, I mean, I think the lesson for the future is just speak to people, just tell them that you care and tell them that you're thinking about them, and be more open in hearing their concerns as well. I think visibility is, you know, a reassurance. You know, just visibility is a reassurance to people.
Yes, no, definitely.
And I think it's what you guys try and do, because, you know, you keep in touch with us as you know, as much as we communicate out as associations. We've got multiple, you know, kind of members who want to communicate with us in lots of different ways. A lot of our time is spent on the phone and on email with individuals, as well as sending out our own comms. People often say, why aren't you on Facebook more, Carly? Why aren't you doing this? It's literally because I've got so many different ways that people want to communicate with us, and I'm prioritizing our members who are coming to us directly. That's what we kind of have to do. But I do communicate with people who are on Facebook and you know, can check things with me, even if I haven't got time to come and write a post myself. So always ask the questions. You know, it's not the dark web. I can see what people are saying. I might not choose to always intervene in those conversations. but it's up there.
It's being noted.
It's
being noted.
And sometimes, you know, I want people. It's healthy for people to have conversations about DIA and DVSA without feeling that they're being watched or monitored by somebody. I know I said that, I was joking. The half the stuff that gets said, it's like water off a duck's back. You know, I take on board the points that I think you need to take on board. It's just when it's sometimes not about me because I've got bored children, but when it gets personal towards individuals, not just heads of associations or, you know, DVSA people, towards each another AGIs, that's when I think, come on, you know, I know we're in a stressful situation. And I have written in my column for DIA's magazine this month, I was really disappointed to be contacted by AGIs who are getting abuse for going back to work early. Look, it might not be your choice. It might not be what you like to see happening. You might feel very strongly about it, but to be calling people scabs, it's not on. No. It's not a good reflection on the industry.
Especially when the challenge from the communication hasn't come from them. They're making their best judgments. And what I've been trying to remind people all the way through, especially when the SEISS grant was coming through, the people that weren't getting it, you know, putting posts up saying, you know, brilliant, I've had this land in my bank account.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that are suffering, and the mental health was probably more of a risk, especially if you were isolating yourself, than COVID itself. So I think we've all seen that.
It's hashtag be kind, isn't it, really? And you know, everybody in every way has a different experience of this crisis, but it's an experience of a crisis, and mental health is a massive issue. This is an industry where, you know, there isn't many places you can talk to somebody about what's going on in your day during the day. You're either with your pupil or on your own, and it's been really difficult. I know, particularly for this industry. There's lots of professions that find it difficult, but those of us who've been able to work through the crisis are extremely lucky in one sense, because we've had the distraction, and I have a team around me that I can talk to every day and discuss things with. You know, I really feel for some ADIs who just feel so isolated and haven't got any information coming through, and they go to places that they think will be a source of information and advice, and sometimes they put a tentative question out there and people come at them, and it's just kind of try and put yourself in other people's shoes about how they feel about that. You know, I'm not being too dramatic by saying it really can impact somebody's mental health and the decisions they make about their lives when they read that kind of stuff, and their families' lives as well.
And you don't know unless you know, and you know, everybody's got their own stories going on. I just think Big Brother this year are really going to have to step up their game, because we've all done it.
We've all done it now. We'd all smash it. We'd all smash it now. But thanks to you and, you know, your group of administrators that you work with, and about the service that you provide on there. Because whilst, you know, we'd love everybody to join an association, it's not for everybody. And even those members who are joining organisations, they want to go. We all go to different places, different advice, don't we? And different information.
Yeah.
You need that. There needs to be lots of different avenues you explore when looking for advice and information. And I know that what you do provides a great service in that respect for people, and a real sense of community. But I also know it's a juggle, you know, moderating the many voices that are on there. So I think, you know, well done for keeping people going through this crisis, and anybody else who's been doing that through WhatsApp groups, and there's lots of support. That's, you know, what I've just said is one negative aspect. Thankfully, that's been outweighed by the really supportive nature of how most people are interacting with each other. But I just say, people, one last point on that, you know, don't think it's the dark web. You know, your pupils, your parents, even in a closed forum, people will screenshot you, people will send your comments on to DVSA and everywhere else. And, you know, even if you're selfish enough to only want to think about yourself, my advice is to protect yourself by remembering you can always be identified by your profession and your business in those forums. People make the link. And we've had cases of people complaining to us because they've seen the comments of their ADI or someone in their area on what they thought was a closed Facebook forum. What the AGI did think it was closed until the parent or the pupil complained about how they were talked about, or just generally how the AGI was talking and behaving in those. The famous case I had was a Guardian journalist contacted me because they'd found one of our members was on an anti-cycling forum online that they thought was a bit of a dark web motorists against cyclists group, and was saying things about killing cyclists, and that led to a national newspaper wanted to cover the story, and they found out who this person was in 5 seconds from their Facebook forum. So
yeah, it's not surprising they wanted to cover it. But the only message that doesn't get seen is the one that you don't send.
Yes.
So if you need to type it, fine, go for it, but don't hit the button.
Type it, then delete it. Yeah, we've all done that. We all have our days when somebody
daily
annoyed us and we don't like their point. And even if you have to type it out just to get it out of your system, we understand it. I'm no angel. I will have some very dark thoughts about people at times, but it's just about kind of just keeping it in or finding another outlet. Like I wouldn't suggest mine. Mine's wine, and I'm not sure that's a good thing. But I think it's a really stressful time, but we need to find ways of dealing with that stress. And I think the next things we're going to be looking at is mental health support and advice. And we're going through the COVID-19 response kits and webinars on COVID-19 and PPE and post-lockdown training, all that stuff. I think I'd like to do something on mental health issues next, because it's not just around this crisis. I think every profession has its element of things that make us stressed and fearful, and we need to be able to signpost people to places where they can get that support and advice. This is just heightened the need to do this kind of thing.
And the appetite's there for that, and the next thing in line on those list of killers is road safety. So the two sides working together would be a natural coalition that would work.
I mean, you don't want to be the person that's saying, and what about road safety, COVID-19 and all that, but we've lost sight of road safety. In some of the things we've been doing during this crisis around trying to support trainers doing key worker training, for example, that has a road safety end, in that we don't want people to go out onto the road with licenses who can't really drive, especially in an occupational role, and they're at risk. But it's still a significant factor to keep in mind, that WHO identifies that road deaths are the biggest cause of adolescent death globally. So we've still got a massive fight on our hands daily to try and create a safer world in what we do in driver training. So that's a goal to keep in mind as we go back to work. Is yes, we're going to be dealing with one public health risk, but our roles have always been about trying to manage, actually, arguably, just as big, if not bigger. I don't know how the stats compare, but it's millions of deaths each year with road traffic accidents, and that still exists as a public health risk.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I think, have you got any more questions for me that you think your forum members or anybody's gonna that's just leap straight out of the kind of page as you read that letter?
There will be plenty. It'll be down to that specific wording, and I think that's the thing that stood out to me over the recent messages, is that we are indoctrinated into this must and should highway code approach, and it doesn't apply. It's not directly translatable. So depending on how they've worded it, that'll be the proof of the pudding. Yeah. But actually, I think you've given us as much as we need at the moment to hopefully be able to make our own choices and be able to plan ahead. So that's probably all we can ask.
Any questions that do occur, obviously, and come through on your forum, I'm not omnipresent, so I can't always pick up on things. So always give me a bit of a knock if you think it's something we need to, as you do, and as many of our members do. We're planning to do a webinar tomorrow. I know it's very short notice, but we wanted to get something on. It's literally just going to be, come on and ask me questions about the testing issue. So I think that's going to be at 3 p.m. tomorrow, but I'll put out an email tonight with this video, with an invite for that. We've also got on Friday anyway at 11 o'clock an Ask Me Anything, Ask Us Anything session. We've been very topic-led with our webinars, and however much we have a topic, people always ask us lots of questions completely off topic. That's fine. That is fine. So we're going to do one where you can be off topic, because it will be on topic this Friday. You can ask us anything. So yeah, try and join us for those, and anything else that any other associations are doing, because we're all going to have questions. Even I have, as soon as I see this, and even if we haven't got the answers straight away, knowing what the questions are, we can take them back to DVSA and their wider stakeholders as well.
And I will say, thank you for the last few weeks, because yourselves and other associations been putting the information through so that we can reshare it on Facebook and we can get the message out there. And I know I've burnt a hole in your text messages every now and again, because that was my venting approach. So it is appreciated, and I think everybody out there does see the information and think at least it's being packaged for us. So it is all appreciated.
We're launching a COVID-19 toolkit for members this week, which has got plenty of resources in it. But we will communicate more widely. I know some take the view, you're not a member, we won't talk to you. We will talk to people who ring up who aren't a member, and give people advice. I wouldn't like to see anybody completely left out in the cold. But yeah, well, tell us what's missing though in terms of information. We see the stuff we're doing as evolutionary. It's not we've done a course, we're done now. It is what else do you need? We've tried this, we've tried a bit of that. Is there something else? And we haven't got all the ideas. That's why we want to listen to you guys. Just tell us, is there something else we can be doing to help you at this time? I mean, for example, one of the things I am going to be doing this week is writing again to government about, okay, test and trace. We absolutely know we need to get better at test and trace in this country, and that is probably the way out of here if there's not any news of a vaccine. But it will impact our profession greatly if people have to keep having to not keep having, but have to have 2 weeks off suddenly. What is going to be the financial assistance for those kind of professions? I know heads of other trade bodies in other industries that live a bit hand to mouth like our industry can do with no sick pay or salaries. I've also asked these questions. For example, could this type of professional tap into statutory sick pay, or will they continue to allow you to tap into universal credit if you suddenly have to be off work, and other benefits? Will they keep those those allowances open to ADIs? Because you do face the risk of being identified as somebody who's been infected and then having to take 2 weeks off work with no income. So we'll continue to ask those questions. God knows I didn't want to raise another spectre or people like, I've only just got over this, Carly, and now we're not even sure when we're going back to work, and now you're bringing another problem into the mix. I'm really sorry, I didn't invent it, but I'm trying to kind of see if there's solutions that we can look at to suggest to government.
I don't think there's an ADI in the country that won't accept a bit of planning ahead at the moment, because now hopefully we can. So yeah, I think the big question I would raise is with the SSP, if that is an option, applying for it is a nightmare, because it's designed for people on a PAYE system that are already linked in. Yeah. So if you can, raise the fact.
Yeah, I mean, it might have to be another pot of money run in a similar way, but with an easier processing system than if you haven't got PAYE. So it's going to be. I'm sure there'll be something that can be done. I suspect it might be more around universal credit being extended in terms of its opening and access to people like that. But it is a concern and something that we need to start thinking and asking about sooner rather than later. Otherwise, it gets forgotten in the rush of other financial demands that government has on it. And will any other questions like that, please let us know if there's an answer that we should be seeking on that, or ideas. Ideas from people. So the advice I am giving at the moment, I did a back to business webinar the other day, and the one thing I did is, again, going back to COVID-19 has made us more risk aware and hopefully more risk averse, is the kind of living hand to mouth nature of this profession is look at your pricing, look at what you charge, because your costs are going up, sadly. Again, I'm the bad news bunny today, aren't I? The costs are going up. PPE now. Fuel prices.
All-time low though at the moment.
Yeah, well, stop. I'm not going to tell you to stockpile it, but stockpile it if you can do. If you've got the storage for it. People like ADIs clunking around with massive kind of fuel carriers just by local Tesco, but that will go up once everybody starts using it again. Insurance premiums are already set to go up. We know that. We'll also have some restriction in policies available, as some insurers hit by the whole crisis have to look at their book of insurance. So that's what we're saying, charge a bit more, because you're going to have to cover all these costs. And we know some driving schools weren't covering their costs anyway at the rates they were charging. But the thing I always also say is change how you charge. Try and contract people in, try and sell block booked lessons for at least 10 or 5 lessons. That's your minimum maybe in future. If you don't feel people can pay up front for a block booking, then maybe offer that they can pay on terms over a number of months, but they have a contract with you and it's a direct debit situation, and you will take the money from their bank account to alleviate the risk. But that's the only terms upon you will do business with them, is knowing you've got line of sight of income, and market that. Don't expect somebody to just pay you up front for everything, but market, there's an advantage. If you take 10 lessons off me up front, it's going to be cheaper for you, or you get something free for that to incentivize that as well. But it's just getting that income locked in and not letting revenue walk out the car each lesson as somebody leaves your car.
And with the waiting lists that we've already got, it's not even that we're going to have, they're forming rapidly.
Yeah.
There's someone else ready to step in. So whereas normally the ADI approach is, I don't know where my next meal's coming from. So, they end up snatching what they can at that moment. There's a big queue. We're going to unfortunately lose a lot of people from the industry through, just the general, well, some of them have loved doing the gardening. Others, others are jobs at Tesco's or delivering.
Tesco, and they're getting nice benefits and employee protection there, and find it's not that bad a job after all. It's flexible hours, and some will take on the model of part-time working still for these supermarket chains or wherever they've been doing part-time work, and carrying on as an ADI part-time as well. So it is it is that time, as we said in that Back to Business webinar. Look at your business plan, look at what you charge and how you charge, look at the cost you have to recover. What were you doing year to date last year, and what do you need to do this year to recover? And
allow for the fact you might have to have that 14-day period. If you get someone in your car, that's not in your control. So they get flagged, and then and you need to do so. I mean,
on average, with small businesses, you advise to have at least 3 months funds in the bank, and sadly, I don't think everybody had that contingency plan in place. Hence, you would see those people probably more vociferous about financial assistance being poor, because they were running on empty even in week one. I think if that makes people think a little bit more about that contingency funds in the future, it's not just a case of go back to work, as you say. When we go back to work and everything's going to be fine, we've got second peaks to consider, and we've got the track and trace being something that's a threat to income and being able to go out and earn as well. So, I think people really do need to look at their finances and what they can do to shore them up. And this is why, not that I'm saying, go ahead there, get a load of debt, it's great. The bounce back loan is not necessarily a bad thing for people to look at, even if they think they don't need it. You can use it to pay yourself income or keep it in reserve, or you can use it to consolidate debts and pay less each month on those debts. In fact, pay nothing for the first 12 months if you consolidate your debts from one card to another or one loan to another. Give yourself that financial wiggle room, I suppose, by using devices like that.
And if you're not sure, it can sit in an account. You can pay it back in 12 months and it won't cost you a penny.
No early redemption fees like a lot of lending has on it. Government debt is the cheapest form of debt to get hold of. You can, it gives you it's that safety net, if nothing else. As we said about interest-free overdrafts throughout this time. I know some people are really, really good and have never used an overdraft in their life, and they've always managed their money down to the nth degree. But there's things that come along that will take things out of your control. So if you can get cheap debt and you can use it and there's no massive financial penalties for using it, then take that wiggle room to help stabilize your finance. I know it sounds like you're exposing yourself financially, but it's not. It's preparing to stabilize your finances. That's what you use them for. And you know that, these are the things that you have to look at as a business owner, and everybody does who runs a small business, is tap into the support you can get. Now, bounce back loans are really the only option for ADIs and ATBs, really. Some of the bigger schools might be able to tap into business interruption loans, but they are, you have to be, you're borrowing an awful lot really to with those. There's more risk. But I know there is in some regions grants, a lot of local authority partnerships. It's worth looking at what's around you in terms of your local authority. Lots of schemes are starting up now to assist small businesses, so it's worth looking at if there's anything there as well.
It's local authorities, and turn to number 2 us.org, which is the one that they recommend through Universal Credit and such. I've got a search engine on there for grants, so you can have a look at that one as well.
Turn2us.co.uk.
Turn number 2 us.org.uk.
And so it's like a search engine for any local grants for business in your area.
That's grants on there.
Yeah, and local enterprise hubs, people like that, local business schemes. There's actually, you maybe never had to think about it before because your business has been puttering along quite nicely, but actually there's a lot of local businesses who benefit from the support of their local business and enterprise hubs in terms of advice, support, guidance, and also money, because not every business is linear or they know what's happening in their industries has been impacted. So I think, it might make people more aware of tapping into more support for the business side of what they do, rather than just focusing on the training being the most important thing.
And that works both ways, and you get work coming back in from it. So yeah, no, definitely.
A lot of people who join Chamber of Commerce and things like that, it's a hub to promote your business, isn't it? Well, Chris, I think hopefully that's kind of explains some parts of the letter. I think, people are definitely going to have questions on the booking side of things and this holding pattern thing.
Yeah.
Very happy to answer those. As I said, tomorrow at 3, we're going to have a webinar. We're going to have another one at 11 on Friday. Keep them coming through people like Chris, and through our own support emails and Facebook, things like that. We'll do our best to gather the information. Thank you, Chris, for coming on this today. I think it's useful to hear another voice. It's not mine, not somebody else at DIA, as well, and maybe we'll do, if people like them, another one of these in a few weeks' time, when we've got other, or the next time something big develops, and we'll collect questions and bring them to here.
Sounds good.
All right, well, take care, mate, and I'll speak to you soon.
Lovely.